Hello, and welcome to the Pain-Free Living Summit, where you will learn how to end pain and find the right treatment for you. My name is Renee Harrison. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, a healer, a wellness facilitator, a speaker, and a writer. I've gathered together many of my own personal mentors, coaches, and influencers right here on this online event. Each of these experts will share with you what they have taught me, that you can live a pain-free life. It is my mission to connect you with as many of the mentors and healers as I can here. With me today is Eva Cruz Pena. She's a speaker, a healer, a life coach. She brings to the stage 17 plus years of professional experience caring for women as a nurse, a pastor, therapist, military chaplain, and life coach. She's well known for providing a safe space for women for them to rediscover themselves, find their voice, and tap into their power. And because of her compassionate nature, Eva creates an environment where women feel free to unfold, unravel, and heal into wholeness, connected with their truth and creative source. Her signature speech is From Fragmented to Connected, The Journey to Wholeness. And our topic today is Step into Your Creative Nature, Creating as an Expression and Healing Modality. Welcome, Eva. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, Renee. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited and very honored to be here too.
Thank you. So when we were talking earlier, we were talking about expressions in art and creativity and how one might use that. Like, I've heard of art therapy for years, but I'm really not understanding all the depths and how it heals. So tell us about your story, how you got started with what you're doing, and explain art therapy to the rest of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, art therapy or any creative expression, it's a way, to heal. I would say I first learned about art therapy when I was doing my mental health master's degree as a counselor. And so it was one of the electives. And because I've always been a very creative person, I decided to try it, right? I wanted to see what was the connection between creativity and healing. And so in that class, we experienced all kinds of things from like clay and painting and drawing and doodling. And I found myself, even though I had already begun my healing process, I found myself really uncovering some things that I didn't know were there through art. And so it was really powerful. And because it had a powerful effect in me, I decided to then implement it in my sessions. And so I started bringing more experiential things into my therapy sessions at the time I was working with survivors from sexual trauma. And so it was really powerful to do things like perhaps a sand tray experience with them, or have them paint their emotions on paper, doodle, and with different prompts and different questions, things would come up to the surface that were revelatory for the clients. And so because it was powerful for me, but I also saw it and I witnessed it to be very powerful in the sessions, I continue to use it personally, but also professionally. So in my different ventures or different professional endeavors as a military chaplain, I used it in the Air Force with the airmen. I use it as a pastor of women. We use that in some of our sessions doing counseling. And then as a life coach, I brought that into my practice. But for me personally, it has been instrumental in different areas of healing. For example, I've done creative expression when I healed from sexual trauma, my own healing, right? And then I used creative expression when I was in this journey that I find myself in right now, which is struggling with a chronic illness. I use art, I use painting right now as the modality to support me in the healing journey, and also to support me in healing the divine feminine essence in that journey that I'm in right now. So it's a very healing modality, I find, for those of us who are more expressive in our creativity.
Mm-hmm. I was one time invited to an art therapy class with a friend of mine, and I remember there was meditation, like a little bit of a break with a meditation uh,
Mm.
session, and I also remember something about sand art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, using some sand art, and then I believe it was there as well that we did like a little miniature Zen garden in like salt or sand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah. I found sand tray therapy was really, really powerful, especially when clients were ready to reenact or revisit certain situations in their life that were difficult. And so they were able to create a different story with the little figurines, and they all got to choose what they wanted to represent what. So those were some of my favorite ones, the sand tray therapy, but also painting. And that, because as humans we are multidimensional, right? So we heal in all our senses. And so there's that way of healing with like our food and our bodies. And then some people journal to kind of clear their heads. And I found that painting was just using my fingers. Sometimes I paint with just my fingers, and that it acts as a different area of the brain, and then it just opens up. It's just one of those things that creates space for us to journey through and heal.
yeah. So would journaling follow under like creative writing, that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you introduce that.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
what about dance or something like?
Yes,
Yeah.
dance is one of the things that I am looking forward to learning in this next stage. I mentioned just healing that relationship with the divine feminine. And so dance is one of those ways. And so I've been learning about this type of dance called Koya. And so the premise is through movement, we remember. And as we move, we reconnect with our bodies, and ancient wisdom flows through us. And so I'm very excited to learn about that.
No kidding. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It sort of reminds me of a conversation we were just having this week about Kundalini yoga and
Mm-hmm.
getting the Kundalini energy moving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can see that would be very powerful. And I'm also remembering there's like talking to you is bringing up some bubbles.
Well, let's bring him up.
Yeah, I think so. They're meant to be. But I'm like remembering things like not just painting, but like collages or what do they call it? Vision boards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another
Mm-hmm.
form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I moved my screen so that these things were out of the way. But if I move my screen up, you'd see them right there.
Okay. Yes.
Right there. And so, they're a visual reminder of my goals and my focus. And especially for me and my daughter in this situation where we find ourselves with this chronic illness, it is very easy when you're in pain to let pain kind of overwhelm you and take over your life, right? Where the only thing that you think about is the pain, and you only focus on the pain. And so for us, it's really powerful to get up in the morning and just look at our goals and our dreams, and just that it opens up the perspective of like, there is life beyond this pain and beyond our illness and our diagnosis. And it gives us hope. And so in that, hope is a crucial part of healing, because when you lose hope, your body kind of stops. And so vision boards are another way of, creative expression where we can, it's another avenue for healing. All these things, what they do is they create a pathway for us to journey towards healing.
Yeah. There's been talk about, the mental focus and mental mindset, changing your story and all kinds. A lot of the speakers have spoken about that and the power in that for healing. But I also, another memory that I have is like doing shell work, gluing shells to an object of some sort, some sort of form. And whether it's a cigar box or a wreath or whatever, it's very meditative. And I remember actually feeling almost like I was going trance-like, you know, and just getting into another brain state, an alpha state, very relaxed. And as some of the other speakers, we've had hypnotherapists on, and they're talking about, you know, the scientific medical reasoning for that, and our healing begins when we're in that parasympathetic state. So what you're talking about is other forms to get us into that alpha state, to calm down the stress.
Right. One of the things that I've done, and I haven't been able to do it ever since we moved, but it's sewing. And so in that process of, you know, sewing a garment, designing it and sewing it, or sewing it by a pattern, the sound of the sewing machine as is, you know, threading and, you know, sewing the pieces of fabric together is very soothing. And it's that aspect where you're saying, like, you just get into the zone and it opens up like this other area of your brain and your soul that is quite remarkable, I think.
Yes. Yeah. We have less and less of that in the schools, where you can get into that quiet zone because it's, you know, lots of noise or chatter or whatever. I know that when I was able to, as I got older and able to go off on my own, it's much easier to get focused like that. But also just lose yourself almost, you know.
Right. Absolutely. When I paint, I have music, and depending on what I'm feeling in the moment, I do very intuitive painting, and so whatever I feel like goes in the canvas, and there are layers and layers and layers, and sometimes the painting takes me, I don't know, a month, 2 months. I just let it speak to me, and depending on what I'm feeling is the type of music that I play. And so sometimes, you know, I'm just feeling very calm and relaxed, so I might put some meditative music, but sometimes I just want to, like, really feel alive and full of energy, so I'll put some Puerto Rican music or something, and I'll dance and I'll paint, and the energy is just that moving of energy through your body and out of you, you know, that's been like tense and plugged. It's liberating.
Yeah. And do you bring your artwork outside? Do you practice with any of your, like in nature, or bringing nature in?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes when we moved here, we had to leave a lot of the tools and supplies back. So I'm kind of rebuilding my stash. But yeah, I would go out and find leaves or branches or whatever, and I would use those as my brushes, or I would stamp them. So yeah, getting inspiration from nature is really cool.
Yeah, wonderful. I've done that so much, not just the shell work, but with the picture frames, and children love that too. Do you have children as clients as well? Yeah.
No, not as clients. I have 2 daughters. No, I don't have children as clients.
And so you were saying, though, when we were talking, that you bring your daughter into this, or daughters, you heal them as well, or they're healing themselves.
Right. So I have 2 daughters. My and their stories with creative expressions are very different, right? So my youngest daughter is the one that also, she and I share the same chronic illness. And she started painting because when we couldn't figure out what was going on with her, she developed a lot of anxiety, right? She couldn't anticipate when pain was going to hit her, so she became very anxious. And so painting was a way for her to just kind of calm down and just express her anxiety in her canvas. So her canvases were very chaotic, you know, and lots of dark colors. So it was really telling for me to see what the turmoil and the darkness that she was feeling when I saw the way she painted. And so then we were able to talk about, you know, the chaos and how are you feeling and what does this color represent to you. And so it's been a healing practice for her. And now she knows, or she chooses that as a tool when she's feeling anxious or she's feeling sick. She'll say, Mom, I think I'm going to paint today because I'm not feeling all that great. And so she'll paint for a few hours. She'll doodle. She'll do whatever. She's 11 now. So she started when she was 8. But that has become really, really healing for her. My oldest daughter doesn't like painting that much, or she doesn't like sewing. Sewing was kind of traumatic for her. She couldn't just like the straight lines, and the precision was really hard for her. But she loves to dance, and she loves to sing, and she plays a violin. And so she expresses that creative nature in that. And sometimes when she's really upset, she has a lot of emotions, she'll say, I'm just going to go play the violin. And I could just hear the emotions in the pieces that she's playing. So yeah, I believe that it is a very healing modality.
Yeah, and bio-individual from the sounds of what you're expressing to us. Yeah. So you've told me about how your illness came to be. You've told me a bit about that story. Would you care to share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So about 3 years ago, my daughter got sick, right? She had this episode where she just started screaming out of the blue, and she said that the blood in her head was boiling and it was burning her, right? So it was really scary. And so that started this crazy roller coaster of medical visits and, specialists and MRIs and testing and all of that stuff. So while she was going through that, a month after, I became sick too. But my issues were more hormonal. Like I was feeling really tired and I was having panic attacks, and I started gaining weight. And so I didn't connect the two because the symptoms were completely different. And I thought, well, perhaps, I'm turning 40, perhaps the hormones are going through some shifting. And so I had this daughter that I needed to take care of. So I focused all my healing energy into her, right? But as time went by, none of the doctors could find out what was wrong with her, and none of the doctors could find out what was wrong with me. And so I started thinking, I wonder if we have the same thing, and it's just expressing itself very differently symptomatically, right? And so I started kind of listening to my intuition, and that's when I started going outside traditional medicine into more alternative therapy. And I started learning about energy healing and essential oils and all these different modalities to move energy out of the body, in the sense so at least we could do something to support our bodies while we figure out what it was. And so last summer, I had this intuitive hit, or like this divine guidance. And I started thinking, excuse me, that perhaps the environment we were living in was making us sick. And so I started looking into mold testing and heavy metals testing and all that stuff. And so at first the doctors kind of thought I was crazy and, it was all in my head. But then I found a functional medicine doctor who was willing to listen to me. And she said, I don't even have to order the testing because I think I know what's going on, but I'm going to go ahead and order the test. And so she ordered a lot of genetic testings and heavy metals. And, we had some heavy metal poisoning. But my daughter and I had mold toxicity in our blood. And so she did some genetic testing, and she found out that there are 2 genes that are very important in the elimination of toxins. And my daughter and I were missing those 2 genes. There was like a malformation, or there were jigs. They were not working for us. And so because of that, when we were exposed to the toxins of mold, they were not being eliminated from our bodies. They were being recirculated in our system. And for her, it affected her brain and her gut. And for me, it affected my hormonals and my liver. And so I had to have iron transfusions and all that stuff. But once we knew what it was, she told us that everything that we had been doing was really good, the energy work and the essential oils. And we had already gone through food allergies and stuff. So we were already in a pretty good diet, and we just became a little bit more strict. And she suggested that we move from our state, which was Oregon. It was a really wet state where we were in. The city of Portland is really wet, to a different state that was dry and had a low mold spores counts or whatever, I don't remember the term. And she suggested that we leave everything that we own, anything that absorbed moisture, had to stay behind. And so in October, we got rid of everything that we own, and we got in our car and we drove across the states, and we moved to Minnesota to live with my in-laws while we rebuild and, as we heal. So that's a short snippet of the story. So I had to leave a lot of my paintings behind because, the canvas and the wood that absorbs moisture. And so that stayed behind. So that's a piece of my story.
Wow. That's an incredible story. And
it's intense.
and very illustrative of how different you've used, like, so many different little modalities to come around and be more of a whole, healthier person, even though you're still on your journey. So that is amazing. And I just love hearing when people listen to their intuition and keep asking, for the right answers for them, because we're bio-individual, and so it's different for all of us.
Right. And that was the key piece that kind of got us in the right path.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned, the different modalities, I think, as individuals, we are holistic and we're multidimensional. So not one thing, takes care of everything. And so I've always been my approach in everything that I do. And I think that's why I ended up being a life coach, because I wanted to integrate all the different aspects of the human experience, the spiritual and the physical and the mental, emotional, social, all of that stuff. And so all these different modalities kind of support and make the whole stronger. And so, I love learning new things. So I'm up for trying something once. Yeah.
And I have the same understanding of it as well, and so therefore this whole summit is the same. It's built on the same premise, right? And all the different. For me, it's right down to the micro environment. The food you were talking about, right, the cleaner, higher energy food from that environment inside to our outer side, and then the community and the the country as a whole, and then the world, global. So. Wow, get me off on that topic.
We could be here forever.
Yes, for sure. I can go on and on. So I want to ask, where can people find you so that they can work with you? And
so they can come to my website, which is www. So my whole name, evacruzpena.com, which is a long name. But it's EVACRUZPENA.com. So www.evacruzpena.com. You can email me at evacruzpena@gmail.com. Or you can find me on Facebook, and it's Eva Cruz Pena Life Coach. Okay. So those are the places where you can find me.
Awesome. And you have a special gift offer for the audience or viewers.
So I created a PDF, and it contains 3 articles that I wrote for this magazine on the topic of creativity. And so as we start kind of expressing ourselves creatively, we might come up or we might stumble upon issues of, fear or frustration or shame or guilt as we're trying to express ourselves, creativity. And so those 3 articles kind of talk about what stands in the gap between the creator and the creation, because I want to decrease that gap for the audience, right? For you. So we talk about those things that stand in the gap between us creating, so that you have a better path to get to healing. So,
wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Eva. It was great to get to know you better.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was an honor being in your space. Good luck.
Thank you. Namaste.
Bye.
Bye.